Are you someone who wants to make a positive change in their life using nutrition? Have you had a successful story with changing your diet and want to share with others? Do you want to know more about positive change? If that's the case, the Inside the Orange podcast will be just for you. Remember, any changes to your activity or nutrition may need to be discussed with a doctor, so please make sure that you do speak to someone before making any big change. But if you are interested and want to make that positive change, have a listen to today's episode of the Inside the Orange podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Inside the Orange podcast. And on today's episode, we are talking about nutrition. Now, if you have missed any of the episodes so far that have been introducing the 6 segments that we're doing for this year on the Inside the Orange podcast: organization, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude, and engagement. If you have missed any episodes so far, please check out the Inside the Orange 2.0 playlist, and you can find all the episodes that you have missed that have started breaking down what we mean by these areas. Today, though, it is all about nutrition. Before we get into today's episode, here's how you can get in touch with the podcast, have your say, and not forgetting how to subscribe and like so you never miss an episode of our podcast. At the Inside the Orange podcast, we're about creating positive change through organisation, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude, and engagement. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram at Inside the Orange, on X at Orange Watts, and the Inside the Orange podcast on Facebook. We want you to reach out and help build the community. So it's time to get into the conversation, and I was delighted to be joined again by my good friend Kip as we break down nutrition. Now, it is something that's really important as part of positive change in my life, but it's probably the last aspect that I've really been able to get hold of. So here's me and Kip just breaking down what we mean and some of the support and diets available for nutrition. This subject today is something that I am really keen to talk about, but if I'm honest, this is where I'm the biggest novice. This is something that's probably the newest change into my life. I am happy to say I've had a food addiction for a very long time, probably my whole adult life, probably even before my whole adult life. But it's only last year that I started to actually look at it as a food addiction. Now, rightly or wrongly, as I say, it's not any, I'm not asking other people to kind of consider themselves, it's just the way I look at it. But what I was really thankful about was when I wanted to do nutrition was my good critical friend, who is my podcast co-host at the moment, Kip Outram. Loves his nutrition. And in fact, he's probably been talking to me about nutrition on the walks we've done. We've done some late walks. We've had a good catch up over the things, and he's always brought me a lot of information about nutrition. I know it's his bag, and I know he's going to bring you so much more on it. So Kip, welcome back. And yeah, nutrition, I think, is this the golden goose? Is this the one that you feel leads a lot out from what we've talked about in the 6 segments?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything more important really than what you're putting in a body. Food is medicine and all that. Again, caveat it, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, but I've pretty much done every diet out there, and just for the reasons, to see how it affects me. And I think that's made me quite in tune with things that do affect me and how important the things you put in your body are. I don't think there's anything more important than what you're putting inside yourself.
And as we've said as well, with reading a few episodes back, I know this isn't something you're not someone who just tries something because it's a Monday. You research, you have a little look at some of the implications, both good and bad, for some of these diets, don't you? You like to invest.
I do. I drive my wife nuts. Yeah, that's what I'm like. I do something, I research it to death. Good parts and bad parts. Like I said, always try it myself. And yeah, I've done vegan, I've done veggie, I've done carnivore, I've done keto, you name it, I've done it. Found good and bad parts of everything. But one thing they all have in common is these diets is cutting out crap, basically. Cutting out ultra processed foods, and eating whole foods. It's something they've all got in common, and why you get benefits from all of them.
And again, it is so, you're right. It comes down to the one thing, doesn't it? What are you putting into your body, and how much of it can you go back to nature? Why do we keep going back to eggs, bananas, at fruit, vegetables? Why are they on every single diet, but we so struggle with them? What is the barrier? Is it because they're seen as boring foods? Is it because when we're going shopping, they're not pretty, they're not attractive, they're just staples?
A lot of it's good marketing, isn't it? It's like these hyper palatable foods, as they're called. These companies have people who work for them who spend their whole days adding the right amount of salt and sugar to make it tasty to us, and to give you that dopamine hit in your brain. And that's, again, we come back to the comfort pandemic. It's just convenience, it's easy, it's quick, rather than going back to sort of the older ways how your grandparents would eat, which is more of a whole food based diet. But again, I'm not pushing any one kind of diet. It's the best diet is the diet you can stick to at the end of the day, whether it be vegan, whether it be carnivore, whether it be keto. The best diet for you is the diet that you can stick to and be most consistent with.
Absolutely. And I think for me, one of the big areas I've seen the biggest change in it. And again, look, I'm still overweight. I'm still on a journey with it. And again, this is why this podcast series is not about talking about experts, having someone who's super fit sitting here going, oh, I tried this diet for 10 minutes and it works. We're real people, we know things have different challenges. But what I found most is mindset. It's really changed how I've thought about food, how I've looked at food when I want food, and the difference between wanting food and needing food. Do you feel there's any kind of legs in that? Do you feel wants and needs are
Oh,
two?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It's uh, going on these different diets. It gives you a new appreciation for when you are actually hungry and when you're not, and how many times you reach for it because you're bored, because you're sitting watching Netflix, or you're just eating for the sake of it. When you are actually eating proper food, getting a decent protein intake, you're not as hungry. Um, it's going back to eating properly, isn't it? You're satiating yourself. It's Whereas you're filling yourself up on crap all the time, you're going to get these blood sugar highs and lows, and you go back to it. It just makes you eat more.
Yeah.
But again, as with every segment we've talked about so far, other segments bleed into each other. It's planning, it's organising, it's prepping your nutrition, getting stuff ready, batch cooking on a Sunday, or just making sure you got stuff to take to work for you, rather than you're running out in a rush, you're not planned, you just grab something on the way to work, which is going to be something ultra processed, or you stop at McDonald's, or, I mean, everyone likes a treat now and again. And I'd never say to anybody, don't have a treat now and again. I do all the time. Portion control was a massive issue for me, and probably still is. And I think that's quite a big issue for a lot of people, is the portions what we're having these days as well, and the portions you get in restaurants. It's a big problem.
Exactly, and I think for me, it's a re-education. I've got a guest coming up who's going to be talking about food, and he is actually someone who's had bariatric surgery, so he's been at quite a big size, but he's talking about the re-education of food, about understanding the food he's done, understanding his relationships. And I think, as I say, it is that, isn't it? It's understanding our relationship with food. It's understanding what it is. And you're right, we've talked about the comfort pandemic in the previous episodes. I think we've mentioned it already today. It's those foods are designed to fill you up, make you feel great for a minute, and then nothing else. But sometimes these other bits of food, you'll be more inclined to go using activity, or you'll be more organized if you do put the right things in your body. There's a reason they're all the same. Yes, it would be lovely if we could come up with something that was the most, exciting thing to eat, but if something's been around for millions of years and it's still the right thing, there's a lot of truth in that, isn't there? If something has survived time, we've never got rid of the foods that are good for you, because ultimately they're good for you.
Yeah, and they don't have to be. It's not. We're not it's not like whole foods are tasteless. I mean, you can still make tasty food. It's probably the tastiest food.
Mm.
It's just going to put that effort into making something from scratch, isn't it? And it doesn't have to be a 3 hour in the kitchen job. You can do something quick and healthy and tasty in 20 minutes quite easily.
Absolutely. I think it's such a key area. And as I say, I think there's so much we will be talking about it. As I've said, similar to the activity episodes, we're not asking people to go out to make wholesale changes to their diet and go in, and pick fads or whatever. We want people to explain to us what's worked for them, what's gone well, what's not gone well, what challenges have they had. But we also want to make sure that, again, if people are going to make changes, that they do speak to a medical profession. Again, it is important to know your allergies. It's important to know what you can and can't eat, and again, to do it professionally. And again, I don't know if this is a myth, Kit, maybe you can help me with it, but a lot of people say these quick answers. You might lose the weight very quickly, but you're going to put it back. It will come back on a lot easier. But if you do it as a kind of managed and structured approach, an organized way, and doing it that way, you're actually more likely to keep the weight off. Is that a myth, or do you feel there's truth in that?
Oh, there's absolute truth in that. It's what how can I lose weight the quickest, isn't it? It's not about that. It's doing it healthily. What they say, a pound a week, and some people lose a pound and they think, oh, I've only lost a pound this week. I think you hold a pound of fat up in your hand, and you'd be proud of, and that's a healthy way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again on these crash diets, and again they're unsustainable. I
Mm.
mean, I've said I've tried carnivore. That was a great, and it lifted me out of a bad place.
Mm.
I had a very low carb intake, and it really helped my anxiety and depression. But it's not sustainable for a long time. Just eating meat all the time. I wouldn't say it's healthy. Again, caveat it: we're not doctors, we're not nutritional specialists, but um, yeah, absolutely, it's definitely a good point that you make. And that's another point in terms of anxiety and depression. It's so much of that can be helped by what you're putting inside your body. I
Mm.
mean, we've all been there when you've had a big binge the night before and you wake up with that brain fog. It's almost like a hungover feeling. Um, yeah, when you're eating healthy and you feel good, that leads to other stuff. That gets you out moving, again, leading into the other segments. Reading and gaining knowledge on all these different, like I say, it's not pushing one diet, it's whatever diet works best for you. Like I say, the best diet for you is the one that's you can sustain the most.
I totally agree. And just as someone, again, going back to the episode, it seems so long ago now, about organization, do you keep food diaries? And if so, do you find them successful? Or if not, is there a reason you don't? I'm someone I quite like to write down what I've had so I can kind of reflect on
Yeah,
what I've had.
I use an app. Like these I think My Fitness Pal is the one that I use. I think there's various apps where you can log your food. It tells you your calories, your protein, your fat intake. So again, me being me and structured and organised, I like to have it in there. It tells me exactly what I'm eating calorie wise, what I'm having protein wise, which helps with my strength training and activity in that sense. And yeah, just keep a daily log basically. And not only that, you can go back to it and think when you are having a bad day, what did I eat? Is there a pattern forming of what I ate the day before? I think doing all these different diets that I have done, it has made me quite in tune with anything that affects me. And nutrition, it might not be the same for everybody, but it's definitely something that affects me. I'm very in tune with it now. If I'm feeling a little bit off, my first thing is what did I eat yesterday? And 9 times out of 10, I can put it down to something I've ate, or my sugar's been I've had a bit too much sugar, or we went out and had a drink, and yeah, keeping that log, you can obviously, it's good to look back and say, right, give you a sort of diary of what you've eaten, and linking it to how you're feeling now, kind of thing.
No, absolutely, and I think it's again a very fascinating thing. And again, I'm looking forward to talk about in the journey that I'm on, and to talk about it more with people that have had it. But again, we want to hear from people that maybe have got good ideas of nutrition. We want to talk to nutritionists. We want to talk to people who can help other people, and people have been successful with maintaining and organizing and weight. And I think you've talked very openly there. And I think a key word is accountability, isn't it? If you are going to eat something, don't say, we can all say, oh, I've done it because, or we made an excuse, whatever. We have to own what we've put in our body is our choice. And we need to kind of make a little way of that. Again, guys, it's a journey. It is something that might not happen overnight, and we want to help support you. We want to give you ideas. If things that Kip's talked about in terms of diets have given you some ideas and think, well, actually, could I look into that? reach out. We'd love to help. We'd love to try and give people a bit of direction. But as we keep going back to any diet, please make sure you speak to a GP, a physician, anything that, or any hospital before you make any big changes. But really looking forward to nutrition. And I think I'm just going to be really part of that audience, I think, for a lot. But I'm going to share my story as well because I think it might inspire someone else who found themselves where I was. So really looking forward to
And
that.
I'll do the same, absolutely, yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on nutrition. We hope you have come away from the episode with some more ideas with how to support, or maybe even that you want to get in touch and discuss some success that you've had from nutrition plans that you've had in the past. We do urge you, though, if you are going to make any big changes, to speak to someone in the medical profession, doctor, GP, physician, just to help you with making that change in an informed way that is right for you. On next week's episode, we are going to be talking about gratitude, and we look forward to kind of bringing this area to you and saying thank you for listening, for being a part of the podcast, and breaking down what we mean about the gratitude aspect. We'll be back at Friday at 5 p.m. as always. And before we go, here is how you can get in touch with the podcast, have your say, like, subscribe, share, and follow all the ways that can help support the podcast that we want to grow the community for. As ever, though, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye and take care. At the Inside the Orange podcast, we're about creating positive change through organisation, reading, activity, nutrition, gratitude, and engagement. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram at Inside the Orange, on X at OrangeWatts, and the Inside the Orange podcast on Facebook. We want you to reach out and help build the community.